32, and I'll be with you until 3 p.m. We have a lot of ground to cover today, and I'll tell you this, most of it concerns things happening here on Earth, like the government shutdown, of course. A lot of it affects people in and around Chicagoland, like the cost of medications and the uncertainty of travel and even food right now. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you now that we've called in a frequent friend of the show to react to a Florida congresswoman who is calling on NASA to release their unreleased data right now and images of what is a Manhattan-sized comet. She wants to advance understanding of what exactly is taking place in the sky. It is a case that only the one and only Avi Loeb could handle, and so we have asked him to lend his voice to this, and he's warning that 3I Atlas could be something maybe extraterrestrial. So prepare yourself now for that conversation. It's coming up in the 2 o'clock hour. It's literally out of this world. We're starting, though, with what happens when maybe proud parents who have internet access go a little bit too far. Sweet Luke and Ellis joining me now as the Bears' second-year wide receiver. Rome Odunze is having to answer some questions about his dad, taking out some frustration after the last game online. Hey, Lou.
Hi, Anita. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing all right. I'm wondering if Rome Odunze is doing okay. These were reposts, to be exact. Let me say that. But one said Rome should be traded to a team that will actually throw to him. And another one said he should be seeing at least 10 targets per game. Talk about how Rome actually responded to this.
Well, I think Rome handled it perfectly yesterday with the media in front of his locker, and he said, listen, it's my dad. I still love him, and he's entitled to his own opinion and his voice, and we talked about it, and frankly, it's none of your business what was discussed between my dad and I, but I'm happy here as a member of the Bears, and we're going to continue to play football, and I think he handled it, like I said, as well as one could. It's his dad. Listen, I'll never forget, I don't know if you remember, there was a guy named Robert Feeder here in Chicago who wrote a radio TV column, and he wrote something that my mom, when she was alive, did not care for, and my mom wrote him a letter without me knowing about it, and I was embarrassed.
Oh, my goodness.
Right, so I get it. Rome, while not admitting that he was embarrassed, I'm sure talked to his dad and said, hey, listen, let me fight my own battles. It's my career. But he's dad, and he's been following Rome's career throughout, going back to where he grew up in, obviously Las Vegas, and then played at Washington. So Rome Odunze has nothing to complain about. Let's get that out on the table right away. No one on the Bears has been targeted more than Rome Odunze. No one has more catches than Rome Odunze. No one has more receiving yards than Rome Odunze. So he has been given his opportunities, and guess what? There's been a few balls that Rome Odunze should have caught that he didn't, that he dropped. Even balls that maybe weren't perfectly thrown. He was a 9th pick in the draft. He should still make those catches. So I understand what Rome is going through personally, because I've dealt with it myself with a parent, and I also feel that Rome Odunze handled it the right way, wants to remain with the Bears. I hope he talked to his teammates. I'm sure he talked to his friend Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson and told them, don't worry about Dad. He's entitled to say or tweet whatever he wants.
Yeah, he is the captain of the Rome Odunze fan club. We totally get it. And I do remember Feeder and some issues there as well. So what parent would not want their kid to be the undisputed star of everything? Rome did get a little banged up recently. Is he okay for this weekend's game?
Who is that again?
Rome did get a little banged up.
Yeah.
Is he okay for this weekend's game?
He and DJ Moore practiced yesterday in a limited fashion. We're waiting for the injury report today, but the expectation is both will be out there against the Giants.
Okay, so the Bears are 5-3, better than a lot of people thought that they would be when the season at least first started. So how are they looking, how are they stacking up in the NFC North?
Well, they have to stack up wins, that's for sure. Right now, they're in second place. They're tied with the Lions, right behind the Packers. The Lions would win the tiebreaker because Detroit blew their doors off in Game 2 of the season in Detroit. But the NFC North stacking up as expected. Teams on top of each other. Green Bay 5-2-1. Detroit 5-3. Bears 5-3. Minnesota right behind at 4-4. Coming off a win at Detroit. Packers lay an egg at home against Carolina, proving that even on its best day, the best team, arguably in the division, could have a bad day. I'm excited for the second half of the season, Anita. Bears' toughest part of their schedule will take place in 6 of the last 8 weeks.
Ooh.
They've got Philadelphia, the number one seed in the NFC as we speak, the Packers twice, the number four seed in the NFC, San Francisco and Detroit, and at Minnesota next week, and home against Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh. Man, they have got a murderer's row schedule. That's why this game is pivotal against the Giants. They need to stack up wins against teams they should beat. And the 2-7 Giants are a team the Bears should beat.
Ooh, wow, wow, wow. When you put it, and you really look at who they have to play in these, what you said, 6 of 8 weeks, that's a lot. But let's talk about the Giants specifically. So what are you thinking for this game? When we're marching into this game, how do you think it's going to go?
Well, I'm thinking that the Bears need to run the football. And again, weather could potentially be a factor in this game. Our great Mike Kaplan told me this morning that we could have 20-plus mile per hour winds, which would obviously affect the offensive game plans for both sides. I'm not worried about snow, not worried about rain. Wind, I am worried about. But the Bears are coming off their best rushing effort of the season when they ran for, 270, 280 in that Bengals game. Kyle Monangai, the seventh-round pick, the rookie, was terrific, ran for 176 against the Bengals. DeAndre Swift is coming back. He's healthy. So the Bears' run game against the Giants' run defense, in my opinion, is the key. The Giants' run defense, second worst in the NFL. The worst, Cincinnati's that we saw last week. So the Bears should be able to run the football effectively against this Giants run defense, and I'm expecting a big day from Kyle Monangai and DeAndre Swift. Don't write off Swift. Before he got hurt, before he was dealing with the bad groin, he had two big games against the Saints and the Commanders. My guess is Swift comes back anxious and hungry to prove that he's still the number one back.
Yeah, I hope that he wasn't over there like, yeah, I'm ready to go before he actually was. Watching Monangai, he was on fire.
Everyone loved Kyle Monangai, and he was given the opportunity, and he took advantage of that opportunity. So credit goes to the rookie who was solid, who bounced off tacklers, would-be tacklers, and had a career day. But I could see the carries going 50-50, half for Swift, half for Monangai. And if we hit the second half and one player is hot, then I think you have to ride the hot hand.
Yeah, mix it up a little. So what did you think about the Bears' trade for a defensive end this week? One, it seemed like it was needed, and he is a former first-round pick.
Yeah, he is a former first-round pick of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He played well in Tampa Bay. He had 15 sacks in 4 seasons, or maybe it was 16 sacks exactly. I don't remember how many Joe Tryon-Shoyinka had, but he really struggled in Cleveland this season. Signed as a free agent with the Browns, couldn't get on the football field. Only played 31 defensive snaps. Now, he was playing behind Myles Garrett, but typically you see a guy, part of a rotation, get 15, 20 snaps a game. He didn't sniff the field. So this is a big opportunity for him, for Tryon-Shoyinka, to basically save his career here in the final 9 games of this season.
Yeah, what grade would you give them on the trade deadline?
For me personally, I did not want to see Ryan Poles mortgage the future. So I'm going to give him a solid B.
Okay.
And most of that grade is because they didn't go out and give away a second or a third round pick for a pass rusher. I don't think the Bears are a Super Bowl team today. I think they're building their way that way. This is the first season for their new head coach, for their new scheme with Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen and Declan Doyle, the coordinators. So I didn't expect this team, to get to Santa Clara in February, and I would hate to see them trade away second and third round picks. For example, Trey Hendrickson, the fine pass rusher of the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati wanted a second or first round pick for a guy whose contract ends at the end of the season
Oh.
and is 31 years old. Well, that's where the cost was for pass rushers. I mean, by all means, the Bears weren't the only team looking for a pass rusher out there. The Bears aren't the only team out there looking for secondary help because of all the injuries they've suffered with their defensive backs. So I give them a solid B for not pulling the trigger, going out, making a minor deal, getting another body on the defensive line because they've lost a number of defensive linemen to injury,
Right.
and they put themselves in a good position for the final 9 games.
Is the pass rush, you mentioned it, is it what is most concerning to you at this point in the season for the team?
It's a problem. It's a problem. They haven't gotten to the quarterback enough, and you need to get to the quarterback to help a defensive secondary that's beat up. So with no Kyler Gordon, with no Jalen Johnson, with Josh Blackwell going through injuries, TJ Edwards may not play on Sunday, the fine middle linebacker. You need to get pressure on the quarterback, or he's going to pick apart your secondary. And the Bears aren't working with their two best defensive backs right now because of injury.
Okay, what is, maybe to flip that, what's the most encouraging sign to you right now?
The fact that they're 5-3 and they believe in themselves. They believe that they can beat any team out there. They believe, even in the fourth quarter when they're losing, that they can come back and win because of their quarterback. They believe that even with, 30, 40 seconds left to play in a game, that they can march downfield and have their quarterback throw a missile to their tight end, who's so big and strong that can have two defensive backs bounce off him, and he can still beat him into the end zone with no timeouts left. They believe. That's what's most impressive.
Oh, belief is really important here. Let me circle back as I get ready to let you go to where we started. And I want to ask you about like social media firestorms, because it seems like we have at least one each year concerning one of the players. These are young men, you know, their families are online. Like for you and I, like our families, our parents weren't on social media. But do you think it's really about the post itself when we end up in these situations, or is it more so like the expectations of the fans and even maybe possibly the ownership group, you know, their expectations over public figures?
Well, the expectations are always greater than one can achieve, in my opinion. And in this case, we're dealing with a guy who was drafted in the first round with the 9th pick in the draft, and much is expected out of Rome Odunze. We also are seeing parents of players of Odunze's stature, of Caleb Williams' stature. Remember, Caleb's dad was very outspoken on social media as well, in stating that he didn't want the Bears to pick him because he felt Chicago was where quarterbacks come to die. Listen, a number of parents are there every step of the way for the growth of their child in their career, whether it's with them in, Pee Wee football, and then in high school football, to the college ranks, and then when they get drafted, and then in the NFL. So I appreciate the concern of Caleb Williams' dad and Rome Odunze's dad. All I ask is, if he wasn't getting thrown the football, then I get it. I really do. But in this case, he's been getting thrown the football. And Ben Johnson said, he said a few weeks ago, maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, that he can't sleep at night because he worries about how he's going to feed all his playmakers. How is he going to call enough plays that keeps all his playmakers happy, that makes all his playmakers feel like they're getting their chance at the football? Because I look at each of these players, Anita, as a corporation.
Yeah.
And if you don't get the playmakers the football, and they don't have the opportunity to rack up catches for yards and touchdowns, at the end of the season, when they're on the open market, if they're out of contract and they're looking for a new team to make them a huge contract offer, the numbers aren't there because they didn't get thrown the football, then they have something to complain about. In Rome's case, he's gotten thrown the football more than anyone on the team.
Yeah.
If anyone has a gripe, it's a DJ Moore. All right? Luther Burden's barely been out there on the football field. Colston Loveland wasn't even being used until the last game. They have reasons to complain, not Rome.
DJ Moore's paycheck should be softening that blow.
Well, yeah, for $100 million plus.
Yeah.
Still, he's a competitor. I
Yeah.
mean, the one thing with DJ Moore that I love is he threw himself on the football field when he was really severely hurt, to the point that he had to go to the hospital after the game.
Yeah.
All right. He was still out there playing because he's got ego, because he respects the game, he respects his teammates. So even though DJ's got the more, the guy wants to be out there so he can live up to the contract.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Lou, we appreciate you as always, man. We call on Lou like time and time again. You always come through, man. We appreciate it.
I'll see you on Sunday, Anita.
Okay, I will see you on Sunday. You all will see us on Sunday. We'll talk about that later. But it's 1:15 right now. Everybody, we have had reporters at the airport starting out early this morning, talking to travelers about the new reduction in flights as a result of the government shutdown. And I'm going to be talking with a representative from the Points Guy coming up next, who is all about helping you navigate the ins and outs of tricky travel. It's 1:16. We'll be right back. $118 right now, everyone, in the transportation department just released a new mandate, of course, calling for all airlines to cancel 10% of their flights from the top 40 U.S. cities starting today. That includes both O'Hare and Midway in our area. So we've called up managing editor at the Points Guy, Becky Blaine, to talk about how travelers can try to navigate this time that we're in and what you should expect. Thank you for your time.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Let me ask you this off the bat. We've heard of airline delays, for years, of course. That's nothing new in and of itself. But this time, it is the Federal Aviation Department, the Department of Transportation, that's now reducing capacity here. So how do you think this is a turning point, maybe, in the broader question of whether our aviation system can actually stand the demand of modern days?
We definitely see travel continuing to grow year over year coming out of the pandemic. We do have an air traffic control shortage, about 3,500 employees currently. So what the FAA is doing is actually throttling traffic across the United States airspace in order to maintain safety standards and ensure that they can handle the traffic in these 40 major markets.
So how big of an impact do you think this will actually have for most travelers?
It depends really on the carrier that you're flying and the market that you might be in, because what we're seeing right now is it's mostly some regional flights that the airlines have decided to start with before going to some of the bigger domestic flights. It looks like they're not touching their long haul international flights right now. So it really just depends. Everyone needs to be aware. They need to check their flights and travel that might be booked, and proactively, look at rebooking if needed.
Yeah, and it's not, of course, just the canceled flights that people should be concerned about, because there's this snowball effect.
There is, and we could even see the head of the Air Traffic Control Union came out and said we could see some ripple effects even into Thanksgiving travel time, even if this shutdown is relieved and over before then. So we're just about less than 2 weeks out from that. So it remains to be seen. It's kind of a waiting game for everybody right now at this point.
The airlines have been sending out some guidance, each one, trying to say how they are handling this time period. What do you think is going to be most affected?
Yeah, well, they've been really proactive. They were given the choice by the FAA on what they would cut, with a decision that it had to be 4% of the traffic starting today. And that will increase over the next week to up to 10%. But they are even offering passengers to be rebooked within usually 4 hours of their original flight time. They're offering no penalty if you want to change your trip right now. They're offering to release those restrictions on basic economy flights. So if you book basic economy, some of those carriers are letting you change those too, which normally there would be a fee or there would be no changes allowed. So just make sure that you're really reading up on what your airline is offering right now and taking advantage of that, so that way you can hopefully have a seamless travel experience.
Yeah. What are some things that you think travelers should be doing differently right now?
You need to make sure that your contact information is up to date in your airline's app. Make sure that you are opted in for text messages and email alerts from your airline. Make sure that if you have TSA PreCheck, you can opt in through your airline's website or app for what is called touchless ID. And that will expedite your security screening at a lot of major airports as well. And if you have Clear, make sure that that is up to date as well. So anything you can do, avoid checking a bag, have that expedited security clearance, things like that, and then continually monitor your flight. We use a site called FlightAware. It shows you a misery map of cancellations across the country. I just checked it a few minutes ago. We're over 560 delays and over 100 or so cancellations right now. And it shows you all the markets across the US. So you can track your flight, you can see where your plane is, on that app. It's a really great tool to use.
You said avoid checking a bag, which is something I just cannot do. But what are some things that you would say, this is not the time to do this type of thing right now?
I mean, if it's me, this is not the time to check a bag, because I'm going to, try and book the first flight of the morning nonstop to my destination. If nonstop isn't available, I'm going to try and go, hub to hub if I can, depending on who the carrier is. I'm not going to check that bag. I don't want to have any extra, loose ends out there, things that could go wrong on a trip. So, as much as you can avoid creating additional variables, I would suggest doing it right now. And even into the Thanksgiving holiday too.
Yeah. If your flight is unfortunately canceled, what should you do? What are some of your options?
So the airlines are reaching out to the customers that are affected, and they're giving them the option to either be rebooked automatically by them, or they could rebook themselves. It happened to a few of our staff members, and they were able to rebook, quickly into something else. But I would say when you get that alert, act on it quickly, because everyone else that's on that flight is going to be doing the same thing.
Right.
If you can, push your trip a few days, if you don't have to be somewhere on a certain day, you could certainly do that and push the trip out a couple days and see how this whole situation shakes out.
And who's eligible for a refund? How are refunds going to work during all of this?
If your flight is canceled and you do not get rebooked or choose not to let the airline rebook you, you are entitled by DOT rules to a full refund of that airfare that you paid. Now, if you choose to travel, it's either or. You do not get a refund if you choose to travel.
Okay, if it ends, let's say, next Friday, the government shutdown ends next Friday, how soon do you think all of this will kind of roll back into what we were experiencing before it happened?
I don't even want to speculate what that might look like because of the volume of air traffic that we're expecting, over 30 million passengers for Thanksgiving this year. So it could be one of the busiest Thanksgivings ever for air travel.
Okay. And I was going to ask you, do you think this could get worse before it gets better?
I mean, anything is possible at this point. So I think we just all need to take it day by day and situation by situation and know what tools are at your disposal and keep an eye on, your airline and your flight. And, if you can change your mode of transportation, Northeast Corridor, we have access to Amtrak trains, we could drive. I would say all options should be on the table right now.
Now, I mentioned that both O'Hare and Midway are on the list of these top 40 cities. Are there some airports that maybe are more in line to handle this better than others?
I'm not exactly sure. I think a lot of it depends on the number of air traffic controllers at each location, because overall, like I mentioned before, we're down about 3,500 employees total across the US. So because they're trying to throttle the traffic across these 40 major markets, there are air traffic control centers spread out across the country that traffic gets passed to as planes move around. But I would say it's going to affect everybody at some point across the country because the way these markets are spread out and just the sheer volume of air travel that we have.
Yeah, and there's so many different concerns in this. Obviously, it started with the fact that these air traffic control workers are furloughed or having to go to work without getting paid, some of them at their second or third checks that they've missed. So starting there, and the fact that many of them were already overburdened even before this happened. Now looking at all of these travelers who are worried about flights, but then also, I don't want to leave out the aspect of the airlines themselves. Some of them were already struggling before this. So when you talk about things like people needing refunds, maybe more people than before, more people than they have had to refund in quite some time, what do you think this could do to some of those airlines that are just kind of hanging on?
I don't want to speculate on the airlines and their, financial performance or anything like that. I think that probably remains to be seen, depending on who the major carriers are. I think some of the smaller carriers might have a harder time than the major carriers. And you saw Frontier's CEO came out and said, brutal honesty, we can't guarantee that we'll get you to your destination. So if you have to be somewhere for a wedding or a funeral or something important, you might want to choose another carrier. And, that was a situation that he felt was best to serve his customers at that particular, moment. But as you mentioned, those air traffic controllers have already a high stress occupation. They've been under a lot of stress due to the amount of air traffic already and being understaffed across the country. So this is, a measure to ensure air safety for, everyone flying, to and through the US. And I think it's an important measure. I know it, is an inconvenience, but the FAA's number one, mission is the safety of air passengers. So I think they're taking it seriously. They're doing what needs to be done at this particular time, and we just need to take it day by day.
Yeah, and then there's like small airports. I often fly through a regional airport, and I think about the fact that, quite often, if you don't take that first flight out in the morning, and there is a ripple effect, there aren't that many flights into these regional airports anyway. So talk about the effect for the smaller places. For Illinois, like a place like Champaign or somewhere like that, they may not have that many flights already.
No, that's correct. And so you really have to be vigilant if you are in one of those smaller airports and you rely on a connection to a larger hub to maybe get you to Chicago, to change planes, to go somewhere else. So it all goes back to just being aware of what your flight options are, maybe skipping that short connection if you can from a smaller regional airport and getting to the main hub, taking the train to the main hub, driving to the main hub versus relying on that smaller plane so you don't miss your next connection.
Yeah, I can see the next thing being like if this continues to go on, that rental cars, well, we are going to talk about rental cars, but, rental cars going through the price for them going through the roof because so many people now need to, take them to get to certain places. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, Becky.
No, thanks for having me.
Is there anything else that you think that people need to know during this time that I haven't asked you?
I would just suggest, as we do at the Points Guy, this is a great time to use those points and miles to have a plan B. book yourself a backup flight or book that backup rental car, something like that. Make sure you have a plan B, know how flexible your plans are, and be ready for anything at this point.
Oof. All right. Tough talk, but it's realistic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, it's 1:30, everybody. Let's take a quick break. All right, 1:32. It's Friday, so we're talking a lot of football. But this time, we're going to talk about the youngsters here. No more NFL for the moment, but the Jacksonville football team from downstate beat undefeated only Richland County 41-39 recently. Very dramatic fashion here. It was the first round of the Illinois High School Association Class 4A playoffs, and I want to bring in head coach Mark Grounds to talk about this David versus Goliath type of situation that you ended up in here. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Okay, I want to know how this game played out because it looks like it had people as like a nail biter.
Well, it started out, we got off to a pretty big fast start and had a decent lead, but they're a championship caliber team for a reason. And third quarter, they clawed back into it, and it ended up being a 2-point game that they had the ball and were driving, and we had to make a couple key defensive stops to seal the victory for us. So it was back and forth all second half and quite a nail biter.
And how did you prepare for it?
Well, I think, I've got a great defensive and offensive staff that had our kids with a game plan that gave us a chance to have some success. We have kids that believe in what we were doing. And honestly, I think our rough conference schedule that we face had us prepared to go on the road and take on a number one seed.
I love that. The strength of your schedule leading to this moment for you all. What's the mentality like now for the players? I mean, such a huge moment, and yet it's not the end.
No, and that's really been one of our focal points as coaches this week. You can't be satisfied. We can't feel good that we just took care of business one game in the playoffs. We want to continue to battle, and when you win, you're still a team on Monday. If you don't win, it's sudden death, and you're handing in gear, and you're off to winter sports and jobs and things like that. So our kids are really, really dialed in on the fact that they want to keep this version of Jacksonville Crimson's football alive and well and continuing to practice on Mondays.
Coach, I see that this is the first year Jacksonville has played in the Class 4A playoffs since the IHSA went to 8 classes in 2001. That's very significant. Do you all feel like you have something to prove?
Well, I think so. We've been in previous years, we've been literally the smallest 5A school that qualified for the playoffs. We were 6-3 last year and traveled up and played Joliet Catholic, which your listeners are very familiar with, and it's a little bit different type of animal from a large urban area school. Now we're facing teams and towns that really are very similar to Jacksonville when we look in the mirror.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm looking behind you at some of the hardware on your wall there. I was going to ask you, has this happened for your school before? Tell me a little bit about the success that you have pictured up there.
Well, the big picture in back is our first ever high school playoff victory, which would have been in 2003. I've been around for 25 years as the coach there, so that was also my first victory. And some of the other ones are just pictures of key moments throughout the years. We've in 2004 we made it to the semifinals and got beat at home against Joliet Catholic. So this, getting to the second round, it's been a few years since we've been able to do that, but we do have some history of making it past the first round, and once we're there, hopefully continuing to make things tick and keep moving forward.
Yeah. What do you think sets this particular team apart, this group of young men that you have now apart?
Well, we're very young. We're starting 14 sophomores and freshmen on varsity, and our senior numbers are a little bit down. It was a class that was really, I think, deeply affected numbers-wise by COVID and some of the shutdowns that we had, and just kids getting out of the habit of participating in athletics during that time frame. But the seniors that we do have been just great leaders throughout, from the start of the off season last year, the summer, and each week during the season, helping us get these young kids to progress step by step and put us in a situation to qualify for the playoffs. But then once we got there, continue to make the improvements in our preparation to have a chance at an upset and continuing to play in round 2.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is you all could be dominant for a while. Let me ask you, who's next?
We play Cahokia down in the Metro St. Louis area, and it's a 2:00 game down there. So if we're fortunate enough to get past that, our kids' goal is to host a playoff game at our field, and if we're able to do that, it would be in the quarterfinals. But we've got our hands full with the really tough Cahokia team this Saturday, tomorrow, and we're taking it one step at a time. I know it's a cliche, but you can't look past anybody this time of the year, because everybody can be victorious.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about who shows up on that given day. Tell me a little bit about Cahokia.
Well, they're very, very fast. Their coach has done a tremendous job. They're 7-2 on the year. They lost to Sycamore High School from the Chicagoland area week 9 on a field goal, and then week 2, they lost to Lift for Life Academy out of St. Louis. Other than that, they've been very, very dominant throughout the year. Very explosive offensively and defensively. They're physical, and they have the speed to fly around and limit the explosive plays.
Coach, I want to ask you a couple of things that are maybe bigger than the game. One, what keeps you there for 25 plus years?
Well, family. I've had some opportunities to look around and move, but quite honestly, it just never felt right. I feel strongly about our community and the type of kids that we have, and I think big time's where you're at, and where you set your roots and where you want to be is where you have a chance to be successful. And I blinked and it's been 25 years down the road. It's hard for me to believe that, but I love our community. I love how they support our kids, how they are constantly doing the small things that give our kids great experiences. And quite honestly, there's no place else that I would rather be at this stage.
Tell me a little bit about that community support. What does it look like where you are? Well,
we're handing out Spirit Wear shirts that were ordered, for the second round today. We had a large amount of people purchase that. We have people that provide meals for our kids during the week after practice. Just the constant buzz. We've got a lot of newspapers and sports radio here in our town, and it's been alive throughout the season, and it's definitely taken a step forward after upsetting the 1 seed last week. So it's just it's everybody is constantly telling the kids how exciting it was and things like that, and makes our job as coaches sometimes a little bit more difficult, keeping their feet on the ground and,
Yeah.
and being focused. But it's been a good problem to have.
Yeah, I had the young men from Leo High School, their choir here, on our early morning show today, and it's kind of the same thing. They're coming off of being on America's Got Talent. You got to like bring them back to like, okay, like this is a wonderful moment. How do we move forward here, though, in humility, but acknowledging the greatness that is happening as well. Coach, beyond the scoreboard, what does a win like this say about belief? What are some of the conversations you have, and really, what does this moment say about how young athletes can redefine that story that maybe someone already wrote for them?
Well, I think we talk about the only belief that really truly matters is what we believe amongst ourselves. I mean, outside our field, it's just noise, it's just chatter. If we put the work and we stay humble and we believe in the process and believe in the people next to each other, you have the ability to accomplish some great things together. And football is the ultimate team game, because you have 11 guys that play offense, 11 guys that can play defense. You have numerous special teams, and it's a sport of attrition where you have to be prepared any given week for somebody to go down and somebody to step up to the plate and take somebody's spot. So I think more than anything, what belief means is what you do to have yourself prepared. And if you're a good teammate and making sure that the person next to you is doing what they need to do, then it all comes into play.
Yeah, and I would ask you, you talked about the moments where it's got to be next man up kind of thing. What has maybe been the greatest obstacle for you all this season?
Well, I think some of our young guys stepping into the spotlight week one. They've played in varsity games as backup roles, but when you're starting 5 new offensive linemen and you're a running team, you've got to realize that it's a process and it's not going to happen overnight, and you got to just keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep believing in the preparation and keep striving to be just this much better every single play that you're out there. And if you can do that and you can stay, you talked about stay humble and stay focused. Those are keys and it's keys that I think carry over to all facets of our life as we're moving forward in school or moving forward in the workforce. There are soft skills that competitive athletics teach us. Absolutely. That really, I think, set kids up for some future success when things are good, but also when you may have struggles in life.
Coach, I fully believe that. What's something that people don't know or don't realize about Jacksonville?
Well, we're a bedroom community of Springfield anymore. At one time, we were the world distribution center for Capitol Records. So every CD, album, cassette tape that was distributed anywhere in the nation came through Jacksonville.
Wow.
And that kind of shut down in the digital age. But one of the famous things is that Eli's Ferris wheel. We create every Ferris wheel in the nation here at Jacksonville. So that's kind of one of those things that and unless you're here and you know about it, you wouldn't realize that Big Eli was created here in town.
I absolutely love it. Coach, thanks so much. And listen, I'm wishing you all the best. I hope that you have many more pictures to put up on that wall as the years go by. You'll blink and another 25 have gone by, I'm sure.
Well, we appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
All right, and congratulations on one upset win. Who knows where you go from here? Okay, it's 1:45, everyone. Let's take a quick break. Okay, everyone, 147 right now. We want to take a quick look at the big board. Let's go to Wall Street and find out what's going on there. Well, listen, that's a whole lot of red on your screen, but there's just a blip of green there, and that's at least where we are now. If that's a bright spot in the day, stocks were falling earlier today after some weak consumer sentiment I'm seeing here. The NASDAQ was on track for the worst week since April, but again, not well, look, in just the moment I said that, it's kind of going back and forth. So some mixed results at the moment. It's just a little bit volatile at the moment here, but there was some pressure by more losses in technology stocks I'm seeing earlier today. And again, there was this trajectory on pace for a losing week as the new economic data started to come out here. So the S&P 500 was losing at 0.1%, the NASDAQ 0.5%, the Dow Jones Industrial Average right around flatlining right now. So there were concerns again among investors around the strength of the U.S. economy. Coming into view this week, we've got a lot going on, of course, when it comes to the economy. We've talked a lot about it here on the show and some of the uncertainty that people are feeling right now. Obviously, with the government shutdown and how that is kind of playing out, when it came to elections this week, but then also even what we're seeing on Wall Street. So that's where we stand right now. A little bit of volatility kind of going up, going down. Obviously, we don't know where the day will end. Hopefully it will end in the green. But again, things are a little mixed right now. It's about 1:50, so we are going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. $151, and this week the Clean, Reliable Grid Affordability Act passed here in the Illinois General Assembly, and this legislation, just like with anything else, is getting some cheers and some jeers. Earlier this week, we heard from one lawmaker who was against it, but today we're hearing from the Audubon Great Lakes who's celebrating the passage of this bill. I want to bring in Adam Forer with the Audubon Great Lakes to talk a little bit more about why they say this is a critical moment for the health of birds and people. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me.
So tell me a little bit more about watching this bill as it's kind of gone through the steps with the Illinois General Assembly to now passing.
Yeah, so this bill has been in the works for a really long time. It builds on the work from the General Assembly going all the way back to 2016 and then again in 2021, and really takes some really important steps forward to get the state to a greater generation of renewable energy in a way that brings costs down as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so now it is headed for the governor's desk for his signature. Are you getting any idea as to how he may lean on this?
I know the administration played an instrumental role in helping to craft this bill, and it looks like all indications are that the governor is interested in signing this bill. And I think that's a really great opportunity to show that we can do a lot of really important legislative work when it comes to renewable energy in our grid.
Yeah.
That's an issue that keeps coming up for individuals, and to be able to see the state take steps forward like this is really a positive sign.
Yeah. Can you speak to some of the opposition that you faced along the way?
I think there are a lot of different viewpoints when it comes to the grid, and that's not really surprising. When we talk about how we generate our electricity, when we talk about how we move our electricity, there are going to be a lot of differing viewpoints. But I think that what we're finding is that there's a lot of bipartisan support, not only for lowering the cost of electricity, but also for making sure that our grid is reliable, so that when we turn on the lights, we have electricity and that we can afford that electricity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm seeing here, in the release that you all sent out, this mention of urgently needed updates. What are some of those things?
Yeah, so one of the really great things that the Clean and Reliable Grid Affordability Act did was to allow for greater adoption of something called grid enhancing technologies. The grid is a really important tool for us to move power from where it's generated to where it's needed. And when we do that, we need to do that safely, reliably, and affordably. With our current grid, it's an outdated system, and we need to make sure that we are implementing technologies that we know about called grid enhancing technologies that really allow us to get more out of our existing grid so that we can move electricity more efficiently through the lines that we already have and move more electricity through the lines that we already have.
Yeah. What are maybe some other climate goals for the state from you all's point of view that this would help with?
Yeah, so Audubon science has been really clear. The biggest threat to birds is climate change. And in order to address climate change, we need our power sector to reduce the amount of carbon emissions that it's generating. When we generate more renewable energy, and when we move that energy efficiently, again, through grids that are through power lines that are minimizing impacts to birds, we're going to be able to not only address climate change, but to be able to address potential conservation issues for birds.
And when we say birds, like how many or what percentage of birds would this kind of help with?
Yeah, so our science, again, has indicated that 2/3 of North American bird species are at risk of extinction due to the threat of climate change. We've lost 3 billion birds since 1970. And so to protect birds, we really need to address the biggest threat to birds, which is climate change. But we know that how and where we build these technologies are going to have an impact on birds. And I think that's the really great thing about grid enhancing technologies is that we can get more benefits out of the existing transmission lines that we have without needing to build new ones. We know we need to build new transmission lines, but getting more out of what we already have is going to reduce those impacts to birds. And it's also going to allow for the state of Illinois to have a more reliable electricity. So it's a win for both birds and people.
Yeah, I'm glad you finished on that note, because what I wanted to ask you next was, how often you kind of run up to people, especially right now and in the state of Illinois, when there are so many different things that are major things that are affecting the people of Illinois. When you're advocating for this, do you run up against a lot of people who say, like, hey, we're trying to help the people right now, first and foremost?
We actually see a lot of overlap in what's good for birds and what's good for people. Mm-hmm. When we're talking about conservation of bird habitat, that's certainly going to benefit birds, but it's also going to allow people to get out into nature to have experiences either going birding, going hiking, and these are usually in areas that are more rural, so people who travel to these areas for some of these outdoor recreation activities are going to continue to spend money in these areas, so it's a great economic development tool as well. We know that climate change is the biggest threat to birds. That's also a significant threat for people as well. So that by benefiting birds through addressing climate change, we're also going to have the opportunity to implement policies and to implement solutions that are good for people as well.
Tell me a little bit about Audubon Great Lakes if people are unfamiliar with your organization.
Yeah, we're a regional office of the National Audubon Society, and Audubon Great Lakes covers 4 other states in addition to Illinois. And our work really focuses on 3 main areas. We've talked a lot about the policy work that we do here today, but we also do a lot of community engagement work, and we also do a lot of the work that you probably think of when it comes to conservation. We're doing habitat restoration, we're doing bird monitoring. We're, again, leading with our science and making sure that in and around the Great Lakes that we are identifying habitats that are most important for birds and working alongside our partners to make sure that we're restoring and protecting those important habitats.
Where does that work often take you? Where are some places maybe that you all focus your work?
We've got 12 priority species across the Great Lakes, but the Calumet region in northeastern Illinois is certainly a priority region for us. That's an area where we've been able to restore 2,000 acres of wetlands, and alongside our partners who've been able to restore another 4,000 acres, we're really able to take important bird habitat, restore that habitat in a way that is beneficial not only for birds but for other wildlife as well. And then we can see some additional benefits from that, such as water quality improvements and overall benefits for the region.
Can you tell me about maybe a recent successful project that you could point to that people would say, oh, wow, I didn't realize you all were behind?
I'd point back to our Calumet work again. That's an area of wetlands in, again, northeastern Illinois. That was a really important wetland feature for migrating birds. And that, because of human activity, that habitat quality was really decimated. And so again, through the work with our partners, we're continuing to restore that habitat to make sure that it's not only beneficial for birds, but for people as well. And that's work that we're going to be continuing to replicate across the Great Lakes.
Yeah. What are some next steps for you all?
We're going to continue to prioritize our conservation work and make sure that our science is directing us to the most important places to restore habitat and preserve that habitat. And we're going to continue our policy work as well. I mentioned that climate change is the biggest threat to birds, so we're going to continue to advocate for policies both in Illinois and across the Great Lakes region that are going to reduce the amount of carbon emissions that are coming from our power sector and make sure that whether it's renewable energy, whether it's transmission lines, that infrastructure is properly sited so that we're minimizing impacts to birds while also getting the climate benefits as well.
Yeah. Is there another big project like Calumet that you all are already eyeing?
We've got several projects in the works. And I think that's one of the really great things about having such a collaborative group that we're working with, is that it's not necessarily just one area, that we have monitoring work and conservation work in all 5 states that we work in. And by having that systematic approach instead of a step-by-step approach, we're better able to greater maximize the conservation outcomes that we're seeing from those projects, doing them simultaneously as opposed to doing just one at a time.
Very interesting stuff. Thank you for the work that you do and updating us today.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for the time.
All right. Take care. Have a great weekend. Everybody, we are now in the 2 o'clock hour. We will be right back. Okay, everyone, this is our time to go, think bigger and think, higher and out of this world right now. It is 2:03, and I mentioned right at the top of the broadcast that we were going to bring in our frequent contributor, Mr. Avi Loeb from Harvard, to talk a little bit about this controversy regarding Atlas. Avi, thank you so much for coming back on the show. We always love having you here. You always expand our minds and our thoughts.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, as I understand it, there is a Florida congresswoman who is now petitioning NASA to release some previously unreleased data regarding Atlas. And tell me your thoughts on the letter that she wrote to NASA, and also the fact that we don't have that information right now, what you think it actually says about what they have.
Yeah, so this is Congresswoman Ana Paulina Luna, who is an advocate for science, and I very much salute her for that. I was in contact with her before she sent the letter, and I'm very happy that she did so. But we didn't receive a response to the letter. Instead, the acting administrator of NASA, Sean Duffy, responded to a tweet by Kim Kardashian. And in recent days, Representative Luna met with some officials at NASA, and they explained to her that this is a result of the government shutdown, that because of a bureaucratic reason, they are unable to release the images that were taken on October 2nd and 3rd by the high-rise camera on board the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. That's when 3I Atlas, the interstellar visitor, was passing within 29 million kilometers from Mars. These are the highest resolution images that we have with about 30 kilometers per pixel resolution. The previously best image was from the Hubble Space Telescope, which a resolution that is at least 3 times worse. So we are waiting for that. In the meantime, the European Space Agency released their images, and the Chinese Space Administration released their images from a camera that is inferior to NASA's high-rise camera. So we are still waiting. Apparently, it's a result of some bureaucracy within government. What I don't understand is why isn't there someone who says, science should not be sabotaged by the politics of the day? After all, the scientists engaged in the retrieval and the analysis of that data, some of them are at universities. The University of Arizona hosts the principal investigator of the high-rise camera. At any event, irrespective, we move on. And 3I Atlas did something really important over the past week. It passed close to the sun, closest to the sun. That's called perihelion. And as a result of that, it was heated by 770 watts per square meter. And some observatories moving around the sun noticed that it became 5 times brighter than it was before approaching the sun. So that makes it unusual. And also it was bluer than the sun, which is very surprising because the surface temperature of 3I Atlas at its distance from the sun is 20 times smaller than the surface temperature of the sun. So it should have appeared red relative to the sun. Also, if it has any dust around it, it should make it redder. But for some reason, we know that it became bluer than the sun when it came close to the sun. And in addition, it deviated from the path that we expected for it based on the action of gravity alone. And so that means that there is some other force that was acting on it. And if it's a natural comet, the only force that can do that is a result of the outgassing and the evaporation of ice on the surface of this object could give it a recoil, because the evaporation takes place in the direction of the sun and the object should recoil in the opposite direction. And I calculated that the amount of evaporation was massive. At least 10% of the mass of the object had to be evaporated in order for it to gain this boost in velocity that was recorded around that time. And that means that if it's a comet, a natural comet, then there should be a massive cloud of gas and dust around it, weighing at least 5 billion tons. And it would be really difficult to miss it. So when it came closest to the sun, the Earth was on the opposite side. We couldn't really see it. It was hiding behind the sun last week, but now it's coming into view. And in the coming days and weeks, we should be able to tell if there is a massive cloud of gas and dust around it. If not, then maybe that non-gravitational acceleration was a result of some engine, some propulsion. I should also say that in recent days, there were some images taken of 3I Atlas from a telescope in Spain, and they do not indicate a clear cometary tail away from the sun surrounding it. So we're still waiting to see if that will indeed be the case in the coming days and weeks. And the next time to wait for is December 19th. That's when 3I Atlas will come closest to Earth. And that's just 6 days before Christmas. And let's all hope that it will not deliver any unwanted gifts for the holidays.
Oh my goodness. There's so much to what you just said. And I'm stuck on an unwanted gift for the holidays here. But let me just kind of break this down piece by piece here, because it's being described as a Manhattan-sized comet. Let me ask you this. I mean, you mentioned the aspect of, you know, even Kim Kardashian coming into this. What do you think the controversy around this is really about? Do you think it's about the science of it all, the culture of it all, like who actually gets to shape the future of space research?
Well, you get a glimpse at how science is done. What happens very often is that the mainstream or a group of scientists that are the most vocal adopt the most likely interpretation of the data that we have. Now, that doesn't mean that they are right, that they are correct. They just adopt the most likely interpretation based on their experience. And if we have a blind date with an interstellar object that we've never seen before, it could be different than what they're advocating. But they would advocate based on their experience of comets and asteroids from the solar system. They would say, it's a comet. It's just a different comet than the one we are familiar with. Even if it has a lot of anomalies, they would still call it a comet, just because that's their vocabulary, that's what they're used to. Now, what they're missing is that when there is a visitor to our backyard, we must take seriously the possibility that it might be technological, because the implications would be huge to humanity. That visitor can come up through our front door. So we have to consider even the less probable possibilities because of implications to society. And that's something that scientists fail to recognize, because, most of the time astronomers discuss objects that are billions of light years away. And if they get it wrong based on their most probable interpretation, it doesn't affect our daily life. But here we have an example of an object that is close to us. And if they get it wrong, even if there is only a few % chance that it's not a comet of natural origin, we must take these few % likelihood that it's a technological object very seriously. Because that's what the intelligence agencies are doing all the time when there is a threat of a terrorist attack. Most of the time, it doesn't materialize, but they take it seriously and they analyze as much data as possible to rule out that possibility because of the implications it has to society. And scientists are not used to that. If they have some interpretation that is, let's say, 95, 97% likely, they will just stick to that and ridicule and remove any discussion on alternative, because that's the most likely explanation. But what they are missing is, when there is a study that has implications to society, we must consider the alternative and collect as much data as possible to rule it out. Or if it turns out to be true, then we need to decide about how to respond to it.
So you believe this could be extraterrestrial?
I believe it's definitely extraterrestrial, that it could be technological, because it has 10 anomalies. It's very big, 1 million times more massive than the first interstellar object that was discovered 8 years ago. It's also following a path that is aligned with the plane of the planets around the sun. It also had a jet that was pointed at the sun during July and August instead of pointing away from the sun, as we expect for cometary tails. And it had shed nickel with very little iron. And that is not something that we see in other comets. We've never seen it. And the only other place where we see nickel with very little iron is in industrial production of nickel alloys. So there are lots of anomalies. It also came from the direction of the WOW signal from 1977. There are strange facts about this object. And all I'm saying is the likelihood of it being different than a natural comet is not very small. It's not extremely small, because why would it choose a path that is aligned with the planets? Why would it come so close to Mars and then Venus and then Jupiter? Perhaps it's on a reconnaissance mission. Even if the likelihood is small, we must consider that possibility because the implications are large. And I should say that I'm getting hundreds of emails every day from people all over the world. Many of them are parents who tell me that their kids are now excited to become scientists. They're asking for a telescope for the holidays as a gift. It's one way to let the public appreciate the process of science, which is collecting evidence, collecting data that would guide us as to the right answer, not pretending to know the answer in advance. Because the foundation of science is the humility to learn, not the arrogance of expertise.
Okay. You mentioned strange facts, so I'm going to ask you what may seem as a strange question. If you built an alien ship, Avi, would you disguise it as a rock, or how would you camouflage it?
Well, that's an interesting question, because we all know about the Trojan horse that looked very innocent to the residents of the city of Troy and then brought a catastrophe to them. And so we should be suspicious. Now, we can figure out if there is anything inside the rock that might be suspicious, especially if the rock is disintegrating near the sun. So if it lost 20% of its mass and it still looks like a rock, then if it quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, it's a duck. So I would say that unless we detect a clear technological signature, for example, a radio transmission or some artificial lights, or we see that it maneuvers, or it releases some probes that arrive to the planets, the Earth or Mars. And I encouraged NASA to look around Mars with the orbiters, the rovers, to see if there are any new objects that arrive there. Or, of course, my research team of the Galileo project would check for any unusual activity near Earth that is in the months ahead after 3i Atlas passed nearby. So if we don't see any of those technological signatures, and we do see the clear signatures of a comet, then it's a comet. Then I would remove any concerns about this particular object. But we should keep that possibility in mind for future visits as well.
Okay, I want to circle back around to the cultural aspect of this before I let you go here. Back to Kim Kardashian. So she did get a response. Were you a little upset, or did it kind of come as a slap in the face that you did not get a response from NASA?
Not at all. I actually extended an invitation to Kim to join my research team on 3i Atlas because she seems curious about it. The acting administrator Duffy responded to her and said, it's a comet. Nothing to do with aliens. So he was very dogmatic in his response. He's not a scientist. He just represents sort of the folklore of the mainstream right now. But in response, I offered her to join my team, and we can figure it out together based on the evidence we have. So the fact that she's curious is a very positive aspect because I see science as an opportunity to maintain our childhood curiosity. It shouldn't be dogmatic. We shouldn't pretend that we are the experts that know the answers in advance. It's just like a detective story. We have some evidence. We're trying to interpret it, to figure things out. And I would love to have Kim on my team. It's a very sincere offer. I haven't heard back from her, but I put it on medium.com as one of my essays.
Well, it would be you, her, and her 354 million followers on Instagram trying to figure it out for sure.
Yeah, all of them are welcome.
Professor Loeb, we appreciate you as always. These conversations with you are always entertaining to say the least, but truly opening our eyes to some new things.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, thank you. And keep us in the loop if you do hear from her. Let us know.
Definitely. You will be the first to know if something unusual happens.
All right. Thank you so much.
You and Kim Kardashian.
Yeah. Well, now I've got to ask you what order. Would I be the first or would she be the first? No, I'm playing. Take care. Have a great weekend. It's 2:19, everyone. Let's take a quick break. Is to give you a live look outside right now. It's beautiful out there, everyone. We started off with kind of an ugly start to the day, but things have shaped up quite nicely. The big question, though, is where we go from here. So I'm so glad to have meteorologist Mark Strell joining me now to talk a little bit about the big talker for everyone around Chicagoland and even in Indiana going into the weekend, what we can expect.
Well, you know, you've heard that four-letter word tossed around, haven't you? The one that starts with S.
But yeah.
You've heard a few, have you? Really? Yeah, we're talking about some snow, and there's a likelihood that we will have some snow around here. Now, it's not going to be one of those you're going to have to fire up the snowblower. You know, I talk to a lot of, especially guys who are like, well, I got a snowblower. I can't wait for that first snow.
Yeah.
I just want to, like, crank her up and get her going. And, you know, that's not going to be the case. It's going to be more of a rain-snow event kind of mixed in together here. This is how we look this afternoon, and you can see we're going to be moving back into some cloud cover. Those are clouds just up to our north. We've enjoyed a little. You're talking about this morning. So those clouds that are already racing off the other side of Fort Wayne, heading towards Pennsylvania, those are the clouds we had earlier today. We're in that little pie-shaped slice of nice weather, and then more clouds coming in later on this evening. But look all the way up to the top left. There's a little purple line.
No, I'd like to stay in the pie.
You know, I think we all would, actually, especially with the conditions we've had today. But purple is coming.
Oh, goodness.
Purple is coming, and that is another storm system that will bring us some rainfall by tomorrow tomorrow afternoon, and some of that rain will mix with a little bit of sloppy snow, probably tomorrow night as temperatures begin to cool off. And then on Sunday, we have a couple of chances of lake effect snow. And you go to the Bears game on Sunday, it's going to be chilly.
Oh, okay.
30s.
Chilly, but is it going to be messy?
Probably not messy with snow, but we can't say that 100% because we'll have this little band of lake effect snow. Now, mostly that's northwest Indiana. There's a possibility it could kind of, whiplash right back here into Chicago. So I can't 100% rule out that we couldn't have a little shot of lake effect snow. But here's the good news. Even though we will see maybe some slippery roads from that lake effect snow, those narrow bands, it's not going to stick around long, even with the colder temperatures. The pavement temperatures are pretty warm still.
Okay, yeah. If we were facing someone like Miami, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's good for us.
Bring it on,
but
right?
It's the Giants; they're kind of used to it
yeah,
too.
used to it, right? They're equal footing.
Mark, thank you so much. Appreciate it. We'll be right back. $2.26 right now, and the Trump administration just announced a landmark deal that would expand Medicare coverage to weight loss drugs like Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound, and Mounjaro. They are all very popular, and most of them have very high costs attached to them. I want to bring in now Dr. David Kim from UChicago. He's a professor in the Biological Sciences Division to talk a little bit more about these drugs that are already on the market and this big announcement that was just made. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let me just start off with your reaction to the deal.
Yeah, so it was obviously a big surprise. There has been like a long debate about the prices for these obesity drugs was too high, and then how we're gonna cut those prices so that we can ensure the access to these drugs that help with the people with obesity and other conditions, access to the important drugs that help with them. And then price is one of the main barriers for patient access to it. Because price is too high, and then the size of the populations that potentially take these drugs are really large, and also these drugs ask patients to take this drug indefinitely to keep those benefits. So given this, payers has been very extremely hesitate to cover this drug. So this is a substantial cut in the prices, really big wins for the patients who have been struggle with obesity and other conditions. Now they have access to these drugs.
Now, when we talk about high cost, what does that actually look like for some of these?
Yeah, so again, it used to be the list prices or sticker prices runs like over $1,000 per month. But the new prices will announce substantially cut down, but there is a little nuances because the new prices will actually vary depending on which product you're getting, what dose you're gonna getting, and then actually how you're gonna paying for this. So some of you seeing this kind of lowest price advertised is $149 for oral pills. This oral pill is actually not yet FDA approved, so not available on the market. So what the new deal says that if this new oral pills becomes available on the market, then they'll get it at the $140 for the starting pill. But in this drug, obesity drug, they generally start with the low dose and then slowly escalating the dose. And then when they escalate dose, the prices will go higher. So that's what you're seeing in the lowest prices. Then what prices actually people pay? Let's start with the Medicare. So those with the Medicare, the out-of-pocket cost or the copay we call is the $50 for those who are eligible to access to this drug. And then what it means by eligible is that even before this announcement, people can have access to this drug if they have a diabetes, heart disease, and then a sleep apnea. So now under the new deal, actually more new people can access to this drug if you are BMI, body mass index over 27 with a pre-diabetes, your BMI over 30 with uncontrolled hypertension, kidney disease, heart failure, and then if your BMI over 35, now you can get access to these drugs if you're on the Medicare and then a $50 copay. What if you're on the Medicaid? Medicaid actually variations by the state, but this new deal actually allows state Medicaid agency to purchase this drug at a $250, which is the same prices that Medicare pays. And then once you're on the Medicaid, patients generally pay almost no out-of-pocket cost. So if state Medicaid programs sign up for this, then a patient with a Medicaid should have access to this drug without almost minimum copay. For those who are, don't have insurance, Trump RX, which is kind of proposed new websites, they can actually directly purchase this drug at $350 for Wegovy, and then starting $299 for Zepbound, and then increase the price up to $449 when they reach the escalating dose. So this is kind of the prices. It's much cheaper than what we generally pay, but also new prices will vary depending on how you actually pay.
Okay, and for those of you who are researchers at the University of Chicago, I understand you all have just had 2 new studies that you're really looking at the cost effectiveness.
Right. So the
what did you find?
Cost effectiveness, cost effectiveness basically, these drugs provide a lot of great benefits. We know for sure. And then the cost effectiveness basically means that whether there is a value for money, the money that we spend can be justified by the great benefits that we provide. And then with these new prices, although our team is actually working on updating our prior studies, but it does seem the extremely good value for money with the new prices.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. And talk about some of the effects, obviously there's the diabetes aspect of this and there's the obesity aspect of this. And it seemed like in the beginning when a lot of these drugs came on the market, that in and of itself was controversial, that it was first for diabetes, but then people who wanted to lose weight were starting to use it and people who have diabetes couldn't get it.
Right. So I think that you mentioned is great that only, later in 2022, when people kind of excited about this kind of weight loss components of this kind of GLP-1 drugs, then people kind of jump on it. And then the manufacturer of these drugs were not ready to respond to this surge in demand. So there is a period that people like to get it, but they're unable to get it because of the supply restrictions. Those issues has largely been reserved because the manufacturer ramping up their supply chains, and then they building new factories to meet those surge demand. So I don't think that there is any issue with the access if they want.
So obviously, if there's a way for people to get it at lower cost, more people would then likely get it. Do you think that we or these manufacturers are ready for that type of influx of people?
I do think so, because this has been like the ongoing negotiations, that this is not new, particularly for semaglutide or Wegovy. It actually the part of the drug price negotiations effective in 2027. So I do think that manufacturers have prepared for the surge demands, and then they're ready for this.
So what do you think? I feel like, again, when they first came out, there were a lot of misnomers, a lot of controversy surrounding them, and they kind of got normalized a bit in time. But what do you think are some maybe lesser known benefits of these drugs, or maybe some aspects of them that still just aren't understood?
Absolutely. So we know a lot from the studies that it shows that the GLP-1 now provided not just benefits for weight loss, but also there are a lot of clinical benefits beyond the weight loss, including preventions of secondary heart disease, and then slowed progressions of the chronic kidney disease, improvement in obstructive sleep apneas, and then improvement in the metabolic liver disease. So all these benefits are kind of that make people think that, this is actually works very well. But there is also unknowns that this drug's supposed to take indefinitely, and then there are a lot of other studies shows that once people discontinue use these drugs, then they quickly regain those weight they lost during those the treatment period. So how we are gonna balance or prevent this weight regain? Also, this supposed to be take indefinitely to keep weight off. Then what is really the long-term effects of using this drug? And then there are some long-term studies going on, but we have not seen the clear evidence on that. So I'd be cautious about the long-term effects of the GLP-1 use. But in a short term, a lot of trials shows that it is actually highly effective in the weight loss and provided clinical benefits beyond the weight loss.
Yeah, that aspect of long-term use, I think, is something that definitely gives pause. And what are some of the things that you can already see that could be problematic in long-term use?
Yeah, so one of the key things that people also thinking a lot about the weight loss, but weight has the muscle and fat proportions. So when they lose the weight, then they also lose the muscle weight as well. And then when they lose a lot of weight, particularly this might be the more important issues with the older population, that they actually lose the muscle as well, then they more fragile to the fall. So these are something that I be cautious. And then obviously doctors will probably know best about whether the GLP-1 is the best treatment options to treat the obesity in your and then in patients' cases.
Yeah, and when people are taking these drugs, what are some of the other things that they need to do to prevent the drugs from being a crutch?
So I think it's still, important to, from my, again, my perspective, that it is important to keep the healthy exercise, diet, and then exercise, not just relying on the drug itself, but drug is really helping you to lose a lot of weight. But once you lose a lot of weight, then it's important to think about how you're gonna healthy maintenance of the weight. That may not be just continued use of the GLP-1, but intensive exercise and nutrition therapy. Those could be the part of the wholesome approach to manage the obesity.
Yeah, and I'd like you to address, how quickly these drugs evolve, because I remember in the 90s when fen-phen was really big, and everyone wanted to jump on fen-phen, and then it became very problematic. Then there were lawsuits, but every few years we get something that kind of comes out like this is a miracle for people, but like you said, we don't know what the long-term outlook of it is.
Right. So I think that's where the kind of we have to keep monitor about the ongoing studies and then the future evidence about the long-term effects on the GLP-1 use. But still, like for now, based on what we know, I think still it's pretty safe and then highly effective to treat obesity and then those with obesity with the other conditions. So again, I think that this is the really big policy moment to ensure access to these drugs at the much more affordable prices for the people who need it. But at the same time, we continue to monitor the future evidence about whether does really something that unexpected or unintended adverse effects happen during the continued use.
Absolutely. Great conversation. Thank you so much, Dr. Kim. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Have a great weekend. It's 2:38. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. It's 2:40 right now. This might be among the most disturbing stories of the day to talk about, but it's important to have this conversation. Right now, officials are seeking some victim information and really any more information about cameras that may have been in a Batavia chiropractor's office. There is an investigation underway. Dr. David Hansen is now charged with secretly recording nude videos of unsuspecting adults and children. Like I said, disturbing to say the least. Kane County State's Attorney Jamie Moser is on the line for me right now to talk about this investigation and where it stands, where we go from here. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Like I said, I mean, it's hard to talk about, but really important. As I understand, Dr. Hansen is now charged with producing child pornography, 5 counts of that, disseminating child pornography, 3 counts, possessing child pornography, 6 counts, and unauthorized video recording of a minor through or under the clothes, which is a Class 3 felony. How did you all get information about this case? How did you get clued in to what was happening?
In early September, we received a cyber tip through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. This happens on a regularly common basis because all of our providers like Yahoo, Google, when they suspect child pornography, they turn it over to the National Center, who then gives it to each state. Each state's Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force then funnel it down to the local departments. And so this actually went to the City of Batavia Police Department, who then began the investigation and then brought in my child exploitation unit to assist.
Wow. So when you, like you said, the tips may come in quite often, But when you actually get something that says, oh no, this actually, we're on to something here, how does it change the course for you all?
Well, in this particular one, most of the time we find people who are possessing child pornography, and it's known child pornography. As terrible as that is to say, there's child pornography that's oftentimes shared amongst the predators in these cases. As the investigation went ongoing, that's eventually where we found out that there may be recordings that were being made of these patients. And we learned of that through the search warrant that actually happened through his business. And so that kind of escalated everything of what we're doing, which is why we're seeking information from the public to see if they were individuals who had services through the chiropractic center and who may have been in a particular room, a red light therapy room, so that we can start to identify people who are on the at least 186 videos that we've been able to locate so far.
That is wild. 186 patients that were either undressed or in some form of an unclothed stage, and these victims ranged in age, like I said, from children to adults. And how was he achieving this?
So this was through hidden cameras within the therapy room. We actually were loaned the services of a dog through Lake County whose specialty is to kind of sniff out electronic devices. And so the dog actually sniffed out towards fans, where we then saw hidden cameras were contained in there. And so that's how the recordings were able to be made without people knowing what was happening.
You know, I remember when the case with Erin Andrews really became just a massive deal, with people then saying, wait, I need to, how can I find a hidden camera? And really a sense of paranoia even about, you know, is a camera here? Is a camera there? You know, when you go to a hotel or something of that nature, what is your advice to people about the vulnerabilities that exist?
Well, and so there's really no way to prevent this from happening, especially when you go to somebody who's trusted in the community. I do truly believe that the majority of the people that we have who are our doctors and chiropractors and nurses are great people. And this is the aberration that we've seen in terms of this particular individual. I think the best thing is always to remain vigilant when you're in a hospital, if you think, or a hotel and you think something, look into it. If you have questions about it or you feel like something's going on, notify local law enforcement, because that's our job. Our job is to look into it to make sure that people are not being perpetrated on like they were here.
Yeah, and if people think that maybe they have been a victim or in any type of situation, but especially in this particular case, if they know of this particular practice, the Hansen Family Chiropractic in Batavia, and they've been to that location, what do they need to do?
So right now we have two forms or ways of being able to contact us. Our hotline number is 630-444-3322. Now this is something where you're leaving messages for, and if it has a message that the message box is full, it's because we're getting so many, we're taking them out, we're reviewing them. We will get back to everybody who leaves a message. It just may not be immediate. But there's also an email address, which is SAO Victim Hotline at kanecountyil.gov. We have multiple people who are going through all of the voicemails that we're getting, as well as the emails, to be able to get in touch with them as soon as possible. But we're receiving at least hundreds at this point.
Wow. And of course, he hasn't been, proven guilty at this point in time. But do we know whether he had any type of priors that would speak to where we are today?
So no, he had no criminal history whatsoever, but we did see, and this is a big distinction between him and some of our child sex abuse material possessors, he had the known child abuse material, so normal child pornography, and I hate to say normal, but what we've seen before with predators in his home. It's just he went the next step now of making his own pornography, not only with children, but also with adults, by these recordings that no one knew about or obviously gave consent to. So that alone screams the level of what he was doing in terms of our community.
Yeah. How long do you think this had been going on?
So we don't know yet. There's a lot of information that we found, and some of it is encrypted. We have brilliant forensic analysts who are helping us out. We're going through each of the videos, every SD card we found, laptops, computers, cell phone. So it's going to take a while before we know the full extent of it. But it could go back years as far as we know at this point.
You know, and technology moves so fast. You mentioned information being encrypted. How hard does it make your job that people who may be involved in things that are nefarious can just find these different avenues to hide them?
Well, it's extremely difficult. And the problem is a lot of this is easily accessible to people. So you have websites like Discord that allows the easy passage of child pornography amongst these predators. But there's ways even to hide things further on the dark web, use of encryption to hide recording devices. So it makes it difficult, but not impossible. I'm very confident in not only the Batavia Police Department, who started this investigation, but also my child exploitation unit, which specializes in going after individuals like this, and our forensic analysts, that we're going to be able to break into everything and find the true extent of what he's done.
Yeah. What do you say to people in Batavia or other places where, you know, a place like Batavia, you may not have a whole lot of cases like this, who maybe feel a little safer in that area, and then you have something like this that just kind of shakes you at your core because it's a person that people have been around on a regular basis?
So the sad reality is that perpetrators like this hide in plain sight. So they're people who we trust: doctors, police officers, lawyers, politicians, teachers, daycare providers. The child exploitation unit that we started in 2022 has gotten over 40 different people within our community. What I want the people in Batavia and all of King County to know is that we are actively seeking these individuals out. If people are peddling child pornography and harming our community, we are going to find them, we're going to put them in jail, and they're going to be brought to justice. But if they see something, that's what we need to know. If they suspect something is going on, if they have any type of information where they think someone's being harmed or someone's doing something like this, please reach out to us, because we will do our best to get those individuals off the streets.
Yeah, okay, and he's been detained. What happens next in the case?
So what's next is he'll get an attorney. I assume they'll attempt to appeal the detainment order. We're going to fight that every step of the way. It's going to be us turning over voluminous amounts of discovery. I want the victims who are potentially on these videos to understand that that doesn't mean anyone in the public is going to get this. This is going to be very much contained, and people in the public are not going to see this. And then we're going to get towards either a trial or a plea of guilty from this individual, but it's going to take probably a couple of years before we see the end to this particular nightmare.
Wow. Okay. Well, I certainly appreciate your hard work on a regular basis, especially on this case, bringing it to this point. And please keep us updated on where things go from here. I certainly hope that people have heard your words and they will heed your advice in terms of coming forward with more information.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to put this message out.
Absolutely, anytime. It's 2:50, everyone. Let's take a break. 2:53. Our time is tight here, but we want to get in one more conversation because Carfax has some new data out that shows used car prices are at their highest in a year and a half, and maybe a new car might be the way to go over something that's used. So I want to bring in M. Nguyen, who is the PR director for Carfax, to talk a little bit more about their findings. Thank you for joining me. I can't hear you. I think you might be on mute.
Hey there.
I can hear you now.
Well, the number one thing you mentioned here is Carfax data shows the average used car price is at its highest point in 18 months. So if you think about it in a consumer perspective, if you are out there looking for the average used car, you're going to pay about $1,300 more than you would just about a year and a half ago. And what's more is when we crunch these numbers, the price gap for some of those popular vehicles of the 2025 model compared to just 3 years before, that gap is so close. It's an average for some of these popular models of anywhere between 5% and 15%, so an average of about 10%. And it's very rare for those used and new vehicles to be so close in terms of that price.
So what's making it a tight market? What is driving that price to be so close between new and used cars?
The number one thing here is the limited used car inventory. What exactly does that mean? If you rewind about 6 years, during the pandemic, there weren't that many new cars being produced. So if you fast forward a few years, that means there are fewer used cars in the market. So there are fewer used cars for consumers to purchase. On top of that, consumer confidence is at its lowest point since April. And of course, that comes with the economic anxiety, the uncertainty, certainly a lot of issues that many consumers feel like maybe they shouldn't be paying so much for certain big items like vehicles. All of this to say that dealers and automakers are saying, well, we need some more people to buy these new cars. We're going to offer more and new financing deals to encourage buyers to potentially buy those new vehicles, which is why we're seeing the price gap so close right now.
Okay, so if someone is in the market and they absolutely have to get a car right now, what are some of the things that they need to consider?
Of course, number one is your research, right? When we talk about those popular vehicles that have that close price gap, we want to make sure that it's not every single make and model. So do your research, go to Carfax.com, look at the specific new cars that you're interested in, look at the used cars that you're interested. Don't just write off the idea that maybe I can't afford a used car, and rather I can't afford a new car, and I would just go with the used car, because as of right now, because that price gap is so close, and let's say you are going to put out a certain amount of money, well, if that price gap is close enough, if you're looking at that new model where there are things to consider, such as that the newer model is not going to have that many miles, such as the new features, the full factory warranties, the interest rates that are going to be lower, the lower maintenance costs that come with those new vehicles. All of this is something that you should consider when you're looking for that vehicle. But the other big part, of course, is that you have to look at other makes and models. Don't just be closed-minded on the vehicle that you want, because other vehicles might have this price gap that might be interesting to you, but also may be more affordable to you if you get the newer purchase. So all of this is to keep in mind.
Yeah, and so for right now, what is the average price for a new or a used car?
So it's just under $25,000. And so if you think about it, $1,300 ago is much fewer dollars than now. So certainly that price is going up, but we're not sure exactly how much longer that will continue. Of course, the used car inventory stock is being exacerbated right now. And so certainly it's not looking great that not enough people are purchasing vehicles. But of course, that means that we're going to have to continue to educate everyone to understand that newer might also be a really good option for you.
Okay, and just on a final note, we're in the last quarter of the year. I know you said there's really no expectation of, or you can't really estimate when things are going to turn around, but is there some hope that maybe a new year brings a turn for these things?
There's always hope for that. Consumer confidence is very low, as I mentioned, and certainly people don't want to spend a lot of money, which will then, of course, affect the car market. But certainly we can only hope that things will get better.
Yeah. Anything else that you think people need to keep in mind right now if they're in the market to buy?
The other big thing you just have to keep in mind is that when you're buying a used vehicle, there is the risk, there's the collateral value, all of that impacts the interest rate. And so certainly when you buy an older vehicle, that interest rate is higher. So ultimately, even if the price gap is low, remember, you're going to be paying more for the interest rate you normally on a used car versus a new car. So for instance, when it comes to, let's say, a Honda Civic sedan, the older vehicle will have an average of about 7 or 8% for interest rates. The newer vehicle will have about 5%. So all of this you have to keep in mind. Ask a lot of questions when you're out there looking for a vehicle.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Em, for your time and for your expertise. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Okay, have a great weekend. Everybody, we hope that you've had a great week and that you'll have a great weekend as well. Obviously, we know things are tough for a lot of people right now with the government shutdown. We're now on day 38 now, and of course, we've talked a lot about what that looks like for air travel and for those who are dependent upon SNAP benefits and what that might look like right now. That's still up in the air as to whether people will get either partial or full benefits anytime soon in the month of November, but we'll continue to have these conversations and look at the people who are trying to help out in between as well. And just on a final note, going into the weekend, we certainly hope that we have a Bears win on Sunday. They are playing the Giants, and sometime on Sunday, if you're watching Fox 32, you may see me in lieu. We are going to talk a little bit about Chicago Live and what's going on with football on Sunday, because some great games are coming up on Sunday in the NFL right here on Fox. So stay with us, and we'll see you back here in Studio 32.
Answered, we will know true justice when those who have not been harmed are as angry as those who have been harmed. And across our country right now, those who have not been harmed are angry on behalf of those who are about to be harmed. 22 million people losing their health insurance, seeing skyrocketing health insurance rates. Families, 42 million of them without food stamps, without SNAP programs for nutrition for their families. People are angry, and they deserve an answer. And all we're asking for is 1 year so that we can negotiate this issue. 1 year so we can give peace of mind to 22 million families that they know they will have health insurance after this Thanksgiving and Christmas. I thank you, Mr. President. I yield back.